Heskau, exiting in the rear of the pizza shop, felt the air press his body against the building. Then he jumped into his car and 20 minutes later was in his home in Brightwaters. He made himself a quick drink and checked the 2 packets of $100 bills he had taken out of the duffel bag. 40 grand. A nice little bonus. He'd give his kid a couple grand for spending money. No, a grand. And sock the rest away. He watched the late TV news that reported the explosion as a breaking story. 1 detective killed, the other badly hurt. And at the scene, a duffel bag with a huge amount of money. The TV anchor didn't say how much. When Aspinella Washington regained consciousness in the hospital 2 days later, she was not surprised to be closely questioned about the money and why it was just 40 grand shy of $500,000. She denied she had any knowledge of the money. They questioned her about what a chief of detectives and an assistant chief were doing out together. She refused to answer on the grounds that it was a personal matter. But she was angry that they questioned her so relentlessly when she was obviously in such grave condition. The department didn't give a shit about her. They did not honor her record of achievement. But it ended okay. The department didn't pursue her and set it up so that the investigation of the money came to nothing. It took another week of convalescence for Aspinella to figure things out. They had been set up, and the only guy who could have set them up was Heskau. And the fact that there was 40 grand missing from the payoff meant the greedy pig couldn't resist grafting his own people. Well, she would get better, she thought, and then she would meet with Heskau once again. Astorre was now very careful of his movements, not only to avoid a hit, but also not to allow himself to be arrested for any reason. He kept close to his heavily guarded home with its 5-man round-the-clock security teams. When he ventured out, it was with 6 bodyguards in 3 2-man teams. He sometimes traveled alone, counting on stealth and surprise, and a confidence in his own powers if he should meet only 1 or 2 assassins. The blowing up of the 2 detectives had been necessary, but it generated a lot of heat. And when Aspinella Washington recovered, she would figure out it was Heskau who had betrayed her. And if Heskau spilled, she would come after Astorre himself. But by now he knew the enormity of his problem. He knew all the men guilty of the Don's death and the serious problems before him. There was Kurt Silk, essentially untouchable. Timona Portella, who ordered the murder, as well as Inzio Tulipa and Michael Graziella. The only ones he had succeeded in punishing were the Sturzo brothers, and they had been mere pawns. All the information had come from John Heskau, Mr. Pryor, Don Craxi, and Octavius Bianco in Sicily. If possible, he had to get all his enemies in one place at the same time. To pick them off singly would surely be impossible, and Mr. Pryor and Craxi had already warned him he could not touch Silk. And then there was the Consul General of Peru, Mariano Rubio, Nicole's companion. What was the extent of her loyalty to him? What had she blotted out in the Don's FBI file that she did not want Astorre to see? What was she hiding from him? In his spare moments, Astorre dreamed of the women he had loved. First, there had been Nicole, so young and so willful. Then he thought of Rosie, his treacherous Rosie, so sweet, so beautiful, so sentimental, who always claimed she truly loved him while betraying him. Yet she could always make him feel happy when he was with her. And then flitting through his mind, like some ghost, came the vision of Silk's wife, Georgette. What stupidity! He had spent one evening watching her, listening to her talk nonsense he didn't believe about the pricelessness of every human soul. Yet he could not forget her. How the hell had she married a guy like Kurt Silk? On some nights, Astorre drove to Rosie's neighborhood and called her on his car phone. She was always free, which surprised him, but she explained that she was too busy studying to go out, which suited him perfectly, since he was too cautious to eat in a restaurant or take her to a movie. Instead, he stopped at Zabar's on the east side and brought in delicacies that made Rosie smile with delight. Meanwhile, Monzo waited in the car outside. One night he left early from a visit with Rosie. When he got into the waiting car, Monzo told him there was an urgent message to call a Mr. Juice.